Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Young, and I am honored to serve as your Mistress of Ceremonies for today's celebration of Asian American Pacific Islanders Heritage Month event. Please rise for the presentation of colors and our national anthem.
Colors! Halt! Halt! Reset! Halt!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail as the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, while the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Forward! Halt! Halt! Hollister! March! Hut! 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 Hut!
Thank you, Patricia. Please be seated. Our theme for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month this year is diverse leadership and expanding opportunity, an imperative for America, and our program certainly reinforces this theme. Please note that all the biographies are included in your program, so I will keep my introductions to a minimum in order for our speakers more time. With that said, as a Minorities in Energy Initiative Ambassador, I am privileged to work with Principal Deputy Director of the Office of Economic Impact and Diversity. Please welcome Dr. Andre Sales.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. On behalf of the Department of Energy and the Office of Economic Impact and Diversity, I welcome each of you to our Asian American and Pacific Islander celebration. Our program today is both educational and inspiring. Thank you again, Patrice, for yet another presentation of our national anthem, and of course, thanks to the service members who are part of the Color Guard, as well as our service members around the world. Dr. Ernest Moniz will present our opening remarks. The unanimous Senate confirmation of his appointment as Secretary of Energy took place a year ago tomorrow. However, his progress towards making energy inclusive of America's diversity over the past year is reflective of his many years of personal determination and commitment to our diverse communities, not only in the Department of Energy, but across the country. Please welcome the Secretary of Energy, Dr. Ernest Moniz.
Well, thank you, Andre, and thanks for the reminder that tomorrow is my one-year anniversary in this position, and you commented on the unanimous vote last year. I doubt that would be replicated if a revote were taken today. but nevertheless, it's been a great year, and a lot of people in this audience have played major roles in making it that, so we really appreciate it. Also want to thank the Mistress of Ceremonies, Emily Duong. I think she's hiding someplace. Wait, why are you hiding? 2013 Miss Pacific Asian American, and as she said, an ambassador for our Minorities in Energy program. I also want to welcome back Bob G. He and I were comrades in arms here in the Clinton administration when Bob was first in charge of policy international affairs and then fossil energy. So we had a checkered career here at DOE in his relatively short time, but it was great working together, and good to have you back, Bob. You know, this is the graduation season, and actually on Saturday I'll be giving the commencement address at University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, like just about 10 miles from where I grew up. You know, I was thinking, this is the first time I'll be giving a college commencement address, so, you know, I regret to say that many of you in the audience look like you may, like me, remember the movie The Graduate, which was, you know, getting on 50 years ago, and the Dustin Hoffman breakout film. And you may remember the scene where he is very solemnly given one word of advice: plastics. If you remember that, it's plastics will have a great future. Well, on Saturday, I'm going to give 2 words of advice: clean energy with a great future. In fact, clean energy will be the answer to 3 questions. How do we address climate change risk? How do we improve our energy security? How do we improve our economy and provide ladders of opportunity for people to improve their status? Because as we know today, energy is doing exactly that. So just in those 3 terms, I mean, on the climate side, many of you probably saw the release of the climate assessment report. Just came out. Very comprehensive, building on the IPCC reports of recent times, but I think the main message there is going to be, and has been, the focus on the regional impacts of climate, the very different risks we see in different parts of the country. Again, I'm heading up to New England, where I came from, and there, for example, it points out how we have seen and will see more of extreme rain events, for example. That's just one of the many examples. So I think as we look at these climate risks, and as people more and more see what's happening around us today, and understand that how those risks will be amplified as we continue with a warming world, the impetus, in fact, to even commit more to clean energy and to accelerating the transformation of clean energy is going to be there. So again, to mimic the movie Young Man, Clean Energy. The economy, again, I've already noted that we see today with our incredibly increased gas and oil production from unconventional sources. We are seeing incredible benefits to the economy. Balance of payments down from more domestic oil production. We still import a lot, but significant progress. On the gas side, we've had lower consumer bills. but we've also had probably well over $100 billion invested in new manufacturing capacity because of the natural gas revolution. Just last week, I met with the CEO of Sasol, South African company, about to make a $21 billion investment in new manufacturing capacity. So it's also attracting from overseas huge investments in the economy. But as I said earlier, to me, it's even more important to look at the kind of the personal level in terms of what it's meant for jobs. I mean really good paying jobs, and that's in the oil and gas industry, but it's also in the clean energy sector, if you like, the wind, solar. You know, as our market has expanded, we have seen the U.S. supply chain components in wind turbines go from 25% only a few years ago to over 70% today. We have 150,000 jobs in the solar industry and growing rapidly. So these are very important ladders of opportunity, and I'll be returning, of course, to that theme shortly. But finally, I said that clean energy is the answer to 3 questions, and the third one, is energy security. I won't say much about that other than to say that today, as you know, we are facing a rather tumultuous situation driven by Ukraine and Russia, et cetera. And if one looks at a huge driver there, it is that our European friends and allies are so dependent, they have energy insecurities by being so dependent on a particular source of energy, most especially Russian natural gas. And their insecurity is a national security problem for us. So what do we need to do? Europe continuing its push towards clean energy will be a major part of that as well. So that's kind of the advice to the graduates in this graduation season, and I think it's a message for all of us today. Now, if I turn to the question of our Minorities in Energy Initiative, that goes back to this ladders of opportunity discussion. It goes back to the fact that this is a booming business. It goes back to the fact that the expectations for the global energy investment in new energy infrastructure over the next 4 decades will average about $1 trillion a year. It's a pretty big number. And obviously, particularly now on the technology side, we want to capture a lot of that. And that means, again, growing these industries, using our innovation, having the human resource base to do that, and that human resource base is going to have to involve all of our citizens. We need more women, we need more minorities in these areas, and that's why we have made a strong focus on not only the Women in Clean Energy Initiative that started about 2.5 years ago in earnest, but last year the Minorities in Energy and recruiting ambassadors, soon moving towards providing recognition of those who have been successful, especially in mid-career, so that they in turn can help inspire the next generation. So we have recruited so far. We have 32 minorities in energy ambassadors, including our hostess. She can peek out, including Bob G. Here, and perhaps others in the audience who I haven't seen. I want to say that President Obama, I can attest that he personally sees this effort of minorities in energy as a very important part of his commitment to developing American talent, to providing an equitable basis for opportunity for all of our citizens. And finally, I'll just then close by coming directly to today's event in terms of Asian American and Pacific Islanders, just to say that Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have played and will play, I believe increasingly, an important role here at the Department of Energy, not to mention, I might say, at home, but that's a separate issue. I won't go into that in any more detail. But over our history, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders certainly have done a lot to help build this nation, but also we also know have faced over that time some injustice and discrimination, and that's what we have to change. Certainly, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders have themselves, I would say, with courage and a consistent and abiding belief in our American values, have challenged the nation to be better, and I think we're all, of course, the better for it, and will be even better as we see increasing participation in what we're doing. Here at DOE, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders currently account for about 5% of our federal workforce, about 4% of our SES ranks. More than half are in the upper GS grades, 13s, 14s, 15s. And this is good, but we have a lot of opportunity, a lot of headroom to do more and to benefit from the talents of this community. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll do all that we can to, again, help you advance in this direction. It's important for you, important for us to see this happen. So with that, I'm going to wish you well in your day's activities, and again, thank you all for your efforts. Thank you. I'm sorry?
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for joining us this morning. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Robert G., the President of Asian Americans in Energy, the Environment, and Commerce, as known as AE2C. In addition to AE2C, Mr. G. is an ambassador in the Minorities in Energy initiative here at the DOE. He is a member of the Development Advisory Board of C12 Energy and is also a member of the National Petroleum Council, a federal advisory committee. Please welcome Bob G.
Thank you very much, Emily, for that very kind and somewhat undeserved introduction. Dr. Sales, our friends and colleagues at the Department of Energy, our invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having us here today. On behalf of Asian Americans in Energy, Environment, and Commerce, we are proud to join with the Department of Energy today in celebrating Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Moreover, as Secretary Moniz just said, and by the way, he's not here, but I do want to commend the Secretary and give him a shout out in absentia. It was a privilege working with Secretary Moniz when we were at DOE a number of years ago, and I'm very touched by his ability to be with us here today. It is a distinct personal privilege and honor for me to return to the Department of Energy today to speak to you. In addition, Dr. Sales, I want to thank you and Director Harris for inviting me to be part of the Minorities in Energy initiative and serving as one of your ambassadors. AE2C focuses on providing professional leadership, career development, and opportunities for Asian Americans and like-minded professionals in the fields of energy, environment, and commerce. We offer, or we center our attention on providing education, career development, as well as providing a forum for our members to learn more about the energy sector through information exchange and ideas. That tells you a little bit about who we are as an organization. Our acronym is AE2C, as has been mentioned. But why do we exist, and what do we do as an organization? What brought us together, and what are our goals? Let me take a moment to share with you just three. First, we seek to overcome barriers. As Secretary Moniz just mentioned, the story of America is one of diversity, and Asian Americans are part of this story, this narrative of the arc of history. But there have been barriers. Some are subtle, such as barriers owing to lack of education or income inadequacy, and others are sometimes more overt. As an example, 40 years ago, I arrived in Washington looking for a job as a federal attorney, as a newly graduated attorney from a law school from out of town, and sat for a job interview. And the interviewer looked at me and said, you know, you're a minority, and you know, if we hire you, we're going to have to keep an eye on you because we hired a minority here once and, you know, it didn't work out. So, needless to say, I didn't get the job, not that I was heartbroken, but 20 years later, after having had a successful career in the federal government and then going back to Texas in the private sector, I came back to Washington and stood on this very stage to be sworn in by Secretary Federico Pena to join the Department of Energy. And as I raised my right hand and took the oath of office, and I believe Secretary Moniz was with me that day, I couldn't help but thinking in the back of my mind, number one, have times changed, but also, gee, I wonder what that guy must be thinking about me today. So it proves once again that sometimes success can be born through adversity. Today, we join with the Department of Energy in embracing the thought that diversity, workforce diversity, is a strength rather than a weakness for our country. Second, we seek to open opportunities. As Secretary Moniz just said, energy and environmental matters are now global. What happens here, as well as in Asia, affects our planet both positively and negatively. Together, the United States and Asia must work collaboratively to resolve the issues dealing with the global need for energy and energy resources while maintaining and preserving the environment. As the mission of AE2C and our vision statement indicates, we build bridges to connect the values, business practices, and to build the values, business practices, and cultures of the United States and Asia. Third, and finally, one of our purposes is to seek to give back. Many of us have been in the workforce for a number of years and have had long years of experience. You can tell by our gray hair. Some of us don't color, so there. But we seek to help those entering the workforce today to give them opportunities. We also seek to elevate those who are already in the workforce but are looking for new opportunities. Only through education and mentorship can we be assured that our best and brightest from our communities can rise to their highest potential, and we want to be part of that process. 3 years ago, a group of strangers and friends got together to form our organization with those ideals in mind. And today, we are heartened by the support we are being given by the Department of Energy to forge a common bond in purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. G. Next, please allow me to take a moment to share with you my insight over the last year. And what I've seen as Miss Asian American, I have been privileged to visit a lot of different cultural groups in witnessing their dance performances, seeing their beautiful costumes, tasting their delicious food. And I believe the meaning behind diversity, the definition behind diversity, is when a community is able to recognize each of their own uniqueness, welcome in an outsider, such as myself, being a multi-ethnic Asian American. It's empowering to know that each of the individual Asian Americans can embrace their own individuality and share that with their community. So without further ado, I would like to welcome the Migrant Heritage Commission Phil Am Dance Ensemble, composed of versatile and talented members of the Philippine American community who have performed for high-profile cultural events held in prestigious venues like the Kennedy Center, the Philippine Embassy, and the Ronald Reagan Center. Please welcome dancers Jeanette Calahong, Carl Abella, Fel Kirk, Kibo Kim, and Belle Hassel. Thank you, dancers, for that beautiful performance. Before I continue, I would like to see if Takashi Meno is here. Thank you. Next on the program is a panel discussion titled Diversity in Leadership, Adding Value by Expanding Opportunity. Moderating the panel is Ms. Afroz Mohammed. Ms. Mohammed is the Associate Director of Strategic Alliance at the Virginia Tech Office of Economic Development. In this position, she focuses on building strong partnerships between Virginia Tech and businesses in this region. Please welcome our panel.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you all for being here. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here and to be able to moderate this distinguished panel of speakers. You have their bios in the book, but I did want to touch on a few things about each of our three panelists today. Margaret Chu, who is the Vice President of AE2C and is also the Managing Director of MS Chu and Associates. Margaret has had a very distinguished career in the energy field, including being Director of the Nuclear Waste Management Program at Sandia National Labs. And also she was, in 2002, she was appointed by President Bush and confirmed by the Senate as Director of DOE's Office of Civilian Radioactive Waste Management. So Margaret has spent a lot of time in these parts. Second, I'd like to introduce Laura Cleese, who is the the Director of External Communications and Corporate Citizenship at Ariva North America. She previously led the company's Sustainable Development Department and developed and deployed Ariva's first sustainability strategy. Laura is also very well traveled. She's originally from Seattle, but she's lived and worked in China, Belgium, Jordan, and France, and across the U.S. And then I'd also like to introduce Rosie Abram, who I think you know has been very involved also in AE2C and is on the board. Rosie is one of the distinguishing things about her career is that she's worked in the community, in the corporate sector, and also in government. So Rosie is the president and CEO now of the Center for Asian American Women. And she's also worked, so at this point she focuses on community activities, but has previously worked as in the geophysical division of Lawrence Livermore Labs, and she's won a number of awards, including being a recipient of the 100 Most Influential Filipinos Award. So without further ado, let me start the panel. And my first question is going to be, and let me start with you, Margaret. Or with Rosie, I'm sorry. How did you get involved in the energy sector?
I'm just going to give you a little backtrack information on me. I really always admire when I talk to someone and they know what they want to do in life. You know, they know I wanted to be a doctor since I went through high school and college. For me, the thing which I wanted to do growing up was to be a nun. And so I strayed far from that, as you can tell from my bio. But the other thing is, as a daughter of two immigrants, I remember when I was having trouble with my math at home, and we had a family friend, and he used to work for Livermore, and it was called the Rad Lab, I guess, at the time. And he was very kind and assisted me in getting through some of my math problems. And so from that point on, I knew that I always wanted to work for Lawrence Livermore National Lab. I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I wanted to work at a place where there was this level of excellence, and I actually thought compassion and kindness to be able to assist, you know, a fourth grader coming out and learning how to do some math. So actually, when I actually was able to start at the DOE facility at Lawrence Livermore National Lab, it was really like a dream come true, and it provided me with an opportunity to then recognize how special it was that I had culture and family behind me to be able to provide the support, but also to make sure that I didn't allow obstacles to be what hindered me, but instead to use them, and I think Bob mentioned this too, to use them as an opportunity to move past and be successful in what you wanted to do.
Thank you, Rosie. Laura, do you want to add your thoughts on that as well?
Certainly, and good morning, and thanks so much for the honor of being here with you. So I would love to say, you know, as a type A, organized, ambitious woman, that my pathway to my role at Ariva in the energy industry was part of a well-calculated and well-executed plan. However, it's really more a story about serendipity. Having started my career in marketing and brand management, subsequently having spent some time in operations and strategy, once upon a time, several years ago, I was doing some work for the United Nations in Geneva. And through that work, I had the opportunity to attend a summit of global business leaders who were passionate about this idea called sustainable development. And at that particular summit, I was working, and serendipitously, the founding CEO of Ariva, a woman by the name of Anne Lauvergeon, gave some plenary remarks. And in those remarks, she expressed a vision for her organization that focused on the role of clean energy and sustainable development in creating the kinds of opportunity that Secretary Moniz mentioned in his remarks. And as a very not so distinguished attendee of this particularly visionary session, I sat among CEOs and leaders of NGO organizations and knew that while I was probably not yet on the totem pole of attendees, that I wanted to work for this woman and be a part of her vision. Now, the serendipity is twofold, because I was next en route to support one of the breakout sessions when I fell victim to a particular hankering for French pastry. So I decided I would swing by the pastry table, avail myself of a pain au chocolat, but en route to that pain au chocolat, who was in my path but Madame Lauvergeon. And so I took the opportunity in that moment. She wasn't talking to anybody else, just to thank her for her leadership, for her remarks, for her vision. I was thankful for my high school French language. And what began as a serendipitous conversation in a city very far from here, 18 months later, turned into an opportunity to establish and develop the Sustainable Development Department for Arriva here in North America.
Amazing. Margaret, what about you?
You will see that through the panelists, the plan got less and less in the career. If Laura thought she had no plan, just listen to my plan. When I got my PhD in chemistry, I was married, and then it was the bad economics time in the 70s. And that's when some of you may remember, that's when the PhDs were driving taxis in New York. You know, there was a period like that. Luckily, my husband got a job at AT&T New Jersey, so I just tagged along. We moved to New Jersey. I was working as a postdoc in a medical school, and I really didn't like that job very much. And then in the meantime, you know, my husband got transferred from AT&T to Sandia National Laboratories in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We had to look up the map and then see where's Albuquerque. I had to figure out how to spell Albuquerque at the time, but we moved over there. After we settled down there for a while, you know, I didn't even look for a job because my chemistry was in theoretical chemistry. It was very hard to get a job with a PhD in quantum chemistry. So I had a few kids in the meantime. I didn't waste my time. And then one day my husband came home from work and he said, hey, you know, people were telling me Sandia Lab is trying to set up a brand new department called Nuclear Waste Management. And then it was a brand new manager from MIT, and then nobody knew what waste management was at the time. Nobody majored in nuclear waste. And then he said, I heard the new manager is not very picky in hiring people because he's too anxious to build out the department. I said, that sounds good. So I gathered some courage. I gave this new manager a call, and then since I was local, so I said, can I come and talk to you? Okay? So I went over and talked to the new manager, and my husband was right. He wasn't too picky because he hired me right away. And so I got into this field I knew nothing about. But I tell you, I really stumbled into something I love. And it turned out it's a totally multidisciplinary field. It involves math, physics, chemistry, hydrology, statistics, social science, regulations. And then I just did, all along when I was in school, I knew I didn't like chemistry, but I didn't know what I liked, and until I stumbled into this field. And then that's how I started a lifetime career in nuclear waste. Okay.
Well, that's amazing. And it seems like one theme that's also emerged is that all of you were pretty open to opportunities that you saw, even as. So, Margaret, what kind of challenges did you face as you're embarking on this new career, and were there any ways that you were able to kind of turn some of these challenges into opportunities?
Well, you know, I'm a first-generation immigrant. I was born and raised in Taiwan. So when I first came to the U.S. as a freshman at Purdue University, the major barrier was language. I'm sure a lot of the minorities encounter that. And frankly, I majored in chemistry because it didn't require a lot of English. So I had very limited choice in my major. Turned out that I really didn't like chemistry that much. But along with the language barriers, and of course, there are cultural differences, and then that's real. And for example, we were raised to be obedient, not too aggressive, and to be humble, not blow your own horns. Yeah. So sometimes it's good, but sometimes can kind of hamper you in many ways. But on the other hand, you may have, there may be unintended good consequences. Like when I was at Sandia Labs, our projects are all team projects. And then at the end of the project, we had to publish technical reports and publish in external publications. And then it was always a big fight of who gets to be the first author. Okay? And I never fought with people on the authorship, the ranking of the authorship. I said, give me the last, doesn't matter, okay? And it turned out that it really created opportunities for me because people loved to work with me because they knew I wouldn't fight with them on authorship. And turned out I had a lot of opportunities, work on different projects, and then I had tons of publications, even not as first author. Well, yeah.
Laura, what about you?
So one of the things that my time at Arriva over the past 5.5 years has acquainted me with is that in some ways I'm a minority's minority. And what I mean by that is when I came into my role, one of the things that was quickly apparent is that from a gender diversity perspective, my industry tends to skew toward men. In conversations looking perhaps at ethnicity, my industry tends to skew toward Caucasians. In looking at academic or professional background, my industry tends to skew toward engineers. And so when I came into my role, one of the initial challenges that I had, and I didn't mention, in terms of demographics, from an age of workforce perspective, my industry tends to skew toward those who are eligible to retire within the next 5 years. So coming into my role, I think that I was diverse in just about every way possible, perhaps with the exception of not having served in our armed forces. But otherwise, it was interesting for me to see how all of those differences played out. And the role and the opportunity that I walked into was one where I'm an athlete, where I was a bit of an underdog, shall we say. And ultimately, it wasn't so much my gender, it wasn't so much my ethnicity, it wasn't so much my academic background, it wasn't so much my age that wound up being initial barriers, but a fundamental skepticism within the organization due to a not so robust understanding of what this stuff called sustainable development really was and what its implications might be for our organization. And so ultimately, for me, the challenge was similar to the one that I faced in my very first managerial role in my early 20s, which was one of being surrounded by some skepticism. That being said, I think that there is something powerful about the process of working through initial skepticism. There's something powerful about the kind of leadership that it develops. Because you aren't leading from a place of authority, you have to learn to lead instead through influence. And when I look at the kind of work that I do at the intersection of business and society, in most cases, in a multi-stakeholder, multi-sector role, the problems that we're trying to address aren't ones where authority is necessarily going to be the key to arriving at a solution or even a suite of solutions. And so, for me, the challenge of often arriving into environments where there's a little bit of skepticism as to what it is that I bring to the table, really for me has helped me to hone an appreciation for the role of influence in helping to affect change and drive results.
Rosie, what about you? You've had such a long career that's included so many different areas that I'm interested in your challenges.
Okay, I'll actually just touch on two of them. One of the careers that I had, I have a biology background as well. So I had a position working for the county, and I was, it's like kind of a field worker, doing a lot of work in the field, going out and assessing what was out there. And what I didn't realize, I knew coming in as I saw my peers that I was the only woman in the organization other than the executive assistant. So, and I was the only person of color, which was fine. I've been in those situations before. But about 3 or 4 months after I was there was an envelope, and in it there was a lot of money. And actually on the envelope is like, you know, you showed us. And what it was is the guys actually had a pool. There was a pool of money of how long I would last in that job. They didn't think I could hack it. You know, there was a lot of things that needed to be done as you go out in the field. They didn't realize, you know, I was kind of a tomboy growing up, so I knew how to take care of cars. I loved backpacking, so being out in the field wasn't anything which would hinder me. And I know at that point, you know, when they give you all this money and you realize that all of them, except for the managers, I have to say, except for the managers, were in this pool and they were betting against you, you could actually turn a little bit sour, right? But what you have to do is, you know, really move past that. And and really maintain, you know, an opportunity for them to get to know me, know my culture, and really what I can deliver. So the turning point there was, if you look at it, after a year, they nominated me to be the president of the association, which was a huge turnaround for the organization. So, you know, really, you can do more with having a good attitude and having confidence in yourself than really, you know, saying, oh my gosh, you know, I'm being beaten upon because I'm a minority, I'm a woman. And I actually have to say, I really like that there's women up here. It was very rare in a lot of the instances where, you know, I sat at management tables, and especially when I was doing a lot of research work in Europe, I was typically the only woman and almost always the only person of color at those tables. So you learn to sit in a different way as well. I taught martial arts, so, you know, having, you know, some breathing exercises and really being able to face who it was across the room from you, being aware, you know, being able to figure out. And really, the differences in how a person is breathing if they're with you as far as when you're putting out a suggestion or recommendation. And learning to have this really broad understanding that if you all are looking at really coming up with a solution, what is that piece? You know, where is the key to unlock it so that you can all move forward together? I really appreciate when there is really diversity in the room, because there is really an attempt to provide broad understanding and really the best solution to whatever we're looking for. So it's really still always maintaining that there's this humanity in each one of us, and how are we going to really maximize on that for what the situation is at hand.
Thank you. I mean, Andrew, that's also a perfect segue into the next question, which, Laura, I'd like you to maybe take first pass that, which is, what's the role of culture and ethnic diversity in the workplace? And I think all of us see it and have to contend with it, and I just wanted to get your perspective on the, you know, the benefits that it brings.
Certainly. Well, without permission, and I'm often at the intersection of instigating change in different perspectives, I took the liberty of slightly rewording the question. And I did so as follows. How are our communities' diverse perspectives an asset in the workplace? Because I think that so often when we're talking about diversity and when we're talking about being a minority amongst the majority, we're talking about barriers and we're talking about challenges. You did mention so generously in your introduction that I've had the incredible opportunity to spend time living and working in a number of different countries and among a number of different cultures. I was born in South Korea, adopted by a mother who is Japanese American, a father who is European mélange. He's a white dude. And so I grew up in Seattle in a biracial family. And so when I think about the way that I look at the world, it's inherently through a multifocal lens, so to speak. Linking to a discussion of today's energy landscape, Secretary Moniz talked about the importance of diversity as we think about where our economy is at and its trajectory. The challenges and the opportunities that confront us are tremendous. We're living in a time of particular dynamism. And I mention that only because coming back to the role of cultural orientation, I think that our community is particularly equipped to help lead us through these challenging times and to lead us as we take advantages of the opportunities in front of us. And I want to start with one particular dimension. Having spent a little bit of time trying to better understand cross-cultural orientation, cross-cultural communication, one of the first things that arises when you're looking at comparing US and American culture to different cultures around the world is you learn very quickly that there is a name for the I, as in me, I-oriented mindset that is so much a part of the American culture and American business culture. We tend to be very individualistic. We tend to believe in ourselves. We tend to believe that that I am the one who determines my path forward, that I can make a difference. And I think that that has certainly played a role in terms of the opportunities to which I have availed myself. However, at the same time, when you turn and you look at what is typical of Asian cultures, it's really more of a collectivist mentality, right? It's looking at we, not just at me. And when you look at what it is that it's going to take for us to address the energy challenges, the natural resource challenges, when you look at what it is that we're going to do to contribute to and support economic opportunity for our communities, I think you need a little bit of both mentalities. When you look across our community, you see the humility that Margaret talked about. But you also see the collectivist, community-oriented mindset that Rosie discussed. And I think that on a fundamental level, one of the unique things that our community brings as Asian Americans is the ability to blend both individual agency with more of a collectivist mentality that will ensure that not only I arrive, but that we arrive at a more promising and more sustainable tomorrow.
Thank you. That's beautifully stated. Margaret, I know you've got a lot of perspectives on the issue of culture as well, so.
Yeah, I don't have the big global view that Laura has. I'm just talking from personal experience that cultural diversity at workplace, I truly believe has a very positive impact at work. And then again, I'm speaking from personal experience. Asian people tend to value friendship, loyalty, so we tend to mingle personal and professional lives, and then we socialize with coworkers a lot. And so I have many lifelong close friends developed through workplaces. I think it's just wonderful. It's wonderful for me, wonderful for them. And in general, if a workplace is diverse, I believe the people are more open-minded, they're more understanding, and they're more collegial, and then they value teamwork more, and then which is so important for a good organization, and especially given the global market that we have now. Thanks.
Rosie, what about your perspective on this?
Well, I'll just go straight to like the physical appearance. You know, regardless of how great your resume looks, how great your CV is, when you come for an interview and you know, I'm seen as an Asian woman. And sometimes that's surprising for folks because my last name of Abraham doesn't give an indication that I might be Asian. Filipino by ethnicity, born and raised in San Francisco. So I'm always taken back when folks say, no, really, where are you from? Oh, I'm California. You know, no, really, you know. And so like, okay, well, from Hawaii and then the Philippines. And so, and even in this day and age, that still happens, which, you know, I figured growing up in California, maybe there would be less of that, but it still happens. So there's the physical aspect of that. There's, but what I guess I wanted to speak of really is the opportunities that, again, that it provides. I had to smile when the dancers came up because when growing up, my parents threw me into Filipino folk dancing as a way so that I could recognize my own ethnic background because they really felt that I was, you know, I didn't speak the language, they didn't speak the dialect at home. My mom surreptitiously taught it to the kids just in case, you know, we were in a situation and she needed to let us know what was going on. She could do it in another language. I had to wait till I was at Berkeley to learn Tagalog, and when they taught it at Berkeley. But it's, you know, one of those funny things where you have to learn your own culture through school, which is great. But the piece of being able to broaden everyone's perspective. So we talk about, you know, thought disruptors. So this is what you need. This is what you need both in a competitive society in government, you need it in corporations, you need it in nonprofit organizations. You need folks who could think out of the box so that you can actually provide the best solution, to shake things up a bit. And by having a diverse workforce, you're actually allowing that to come in a much more organic way. So we talk about thought disruptors, which is not the same as being disruptive. And what we've noticed is that if you don't have a diverse workplace, as you bring in other folks of color or as you change the gender balance or other pieces, it's a little bit disruptive and jarring. So there's might be enough there to tweak you, but you really want to open the door to your own thought processes. You want to open the door so that there is this opportunity, once again, that we're talking about, which being someone of a different color, a different gender, someone who's bringing in your cultural background, provides that opportunity. And I want, you know, we're talking about all these different things, but I have to say, one of my best engineers on my team was actually, he called himself Heinz 57 from Idaho. And the thing is because he had a different culture from being in the Midwest than what we had in Silicon Valley. So we're not just talking about people of color, we're actually talking about folks who come in with different thought processes who can actually add the full diversity to all of your situations.
Oh, thank you. I think so often in workplaces, you know, that can be seen as we want to gather on a common point of view, and yet you're right that the thought disruptors, the people who bring up the perspectives that need to be raised, you know, that's very important that they be heard. Margaret, would you like to, our next question has to do with the way that the energy industry has progressed during each of your careers. And so I wanted to ask you to start that, Margaret, in terms of how it's changed and progressed.
Let me, instead of talking about energy industry, I'll just talk about the progress in diversity in my lifetime that I have witnessed. Let me tell you a story. When I was a senior in college at Purdue University, I already said that I didn't like chemistry, okay? But I decided I wanted to go to graduate school. So I say, now what do I do? Do I go to graduate school in chemistry, or do I turn my direction a little bit? So I went to my professor, and then I said, I'm thinking of applying for graduate school in chemical engineering. And this old guy say, no way, Margaret. Being a female engineer, you will never get a job. Okay. I just want to let you know that I'm older than a lot of you, but I'm not that old. It wasn't that long time ago. So when I told my daughters the story, they said, wow, were you born in 1850 or what? You know, I said, that's how much diversity has progressed. I personally just been thrilled witnessing and what's going on. Look at the CEO of Microsoft, CEO of Pepsi, CEO of Yahoo. And then I'll tell you what, when my professor was telling me never be an engineer, I never dreamed there would be this day, and so fast that it's happening all over. So I'm personally just very, very excited about the progress.
Laura, what about you? What have you seen?
So when I reflect on my career in the energy industry, the disclaimer is that I'm reflecting on about 5.5 years. Now, some of my male colleagues, upon my arrival at Areva, seemed to think that I had actually just graduated from undergrad. They were very generous. And so the disclaimer is that I'd like to provide some thoughts on the past 5.5 years, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that that is not the duration of my career. So one of the things that I've seen over the course of the last 5.5 years is the very real dynamics around workforce sustainability and workforce development play out in real time in our industry. And I think that when I started, it was at a whisper among the large energy companies, among the large electric utilities. There was some discussion and some recognition that, our workforce seems to be skewing toward retirement, and what does that mean? And over the course of the past 5.5 years, what I've seen that come to mean is a renewed passion for and commitment to workforce sustainability and workforce diversity, which translates into evolving opportunities for our communities and communities beyond Asian Americans. To what Rosie was saying about the importance of a diverse workforce and building on what Margaret said about what those benefits really are. I think that more and more companies are recognizing that in an industry like mine, where over 30% of our workforce is eligible for retirement within the next 5 years, that means an opportunity to reach out to and engage with new constituents, with people from different backgrounds, both in terms of academic orientation, in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity. It means that there are tremendous opportunities from a career perspective in the energy industry. And having been in the industry only 5.5 years, that's something that I have witnessed unfold serendipitously for me as well. I think it's an incredible time of excitement, of transition, of dynamism, and fundamentally of opportunity. And it's been wonderful for me to see within my organization and through the facilitation of initiatives like DOE's Minorities in Energy Initiative, a renewed commitment to passion for recognition of the important role that a more diverse community will play in helping to create the clean energy future that Secretary Moniz opened his remarks with.
So I've been, I guess, in the energy sector or worked with folks since the 80s. And I know some people say, you don't look that old, so thank you for that. But really, I started at the lab in the late 80s, and I've seen a tremendous growth in technology. I've seen a tremendous growth in products that are out there. And if you look at it, you look at technology now, it's moving so quickly. I hear that, Apple's going to have a 6th version on their, for their iPhone coming out this fall. I'm still on 4. And it's so, how do we quickly and consistently stay up with technology? When I was working at Lawrence Livermore National Lab, I worked for the National Response Program, which actually monitored atmospheric release into the, global. So it really was, in case there was a nuclear release, we'd be able to determine where, and how do we provide a safety program so that there could be a proper evacuation. But it also dealt with if there's fires, how do you steer planes in the right areas so that they're missing the plumes of smoke. So going from like a national response situation to then working in Silicon Valley, where we're working on lasers so that we could provide applications which can assist our communities. And then moving forward, so then we move into solar energy, then we move into hybridization of energy. And those in just a couple of decades. We need to be very vigilant and still maintain a broad awareness of what the other possibilities are in different arenas. I had to look up this morning, earlier this week, really what the 3 silos were here in the Department of Energy, because things change. And it's incumbent on each one of us and each one of you to recognize what each silo within DOE does. Secretary Moniz was talking about clean energy, and that's just in one area, but you have to be able to see, what am I doing today in my job that could benefit maybe other parts of the department as well. Each one of us should really take upon ourselves to think of ourselves as an entrepreneur so that we can better the department, so that we can better foresee what we could do for the development as we move forward in the energy sector. I do a lot of work also in we call it in Houston, where they proudly call themselves the energy corridor. There is so much going on there. What are we aware of so that we're not duplicating efforts in different silos? So there is this opportunity, but it's also really a responsibility on for each one of us to maintain.
Well, thank you all so much. I think this has been an incredibly rich and informative panel, and we appreciate you all being here, and I'm sure there'll be some good opportunity for informal conversation after the program ends.
Thank you.
Thank you, Afroze, Margaret, Rosie, and Laura for your insight and word of advice. I know I'm truly inspired and I'm motivated to make this world a better place. So on behalf of my generation, thank you so much for not only representing minorities culturally, across genders, and across the region. Thank you so much. Today we are honored to have, before we begin, we have another special guest I would like to pull out. Hiroyuki Hatara. Thank you. Today, we are honored to have with us Dr. James Mung, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Dr. Mung entered the Senior Executive Service in 1998 and has served, in 1998 and has served in many capacities since then, one of which was a STEM executive reporting to the Principal Civilian Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Research and Development. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. James Mung.
Thank you, Amy. Good afternoon. Pretty crowded here. Okay. Well, first of all, it's wonderful to get out of Pentagon and be here with you. Especially on the the financial management side. It's like, it's like the atomic bomb. When the chain reaction happens, you need the uniform pressure from all sides at the same time. Anyhow, what I wanted to share with you is the same brief I shared with FAPAC down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I don't know how many of you were able to get registration fee and the travel money to go down there. So I brought that brief to you, so it becomes easier. But the issue really is the leadership. The question is Asian Pacific American ethnic group is viewed as not a very good leader. And there are issues where they're coming from, and the issues are very real. And at the end of this brief, and I hope you get a better perspective of where you need to pay attention and how we can overcome this. So do I control this or somebody controls this? Oh, next please. Ooh, that's good. Colin Powell, there are a lot of books written about the leadership, and I pick Colin Powell's because he conveyed the essence, the core essence in such a simple form. It really is only 3 issues. What is the definition of a leader? Well, you take charge, and number 2, and people has to follow you, and people respect you, and you have confidence to do that. But there are 3 things he said the leader must do, and I think they are pretty straightforward. And I have 3 green checks. It represents the Asian Pacific American group has the fundamental attributes to meet all 3. And that's my opening position. All right, next. And then the next thing he said was fundamentally, to be a leader, you need to do 3 things. And, and the 3 end outcomes, you have confidence, and other people trust you to the point that they will follow you. They will admire you and follow you. So confidence is in yourself. Confidence is not on other people. It's not on the people that you are leading. But they have to trust you that you have the confidence and the capability to lead them. And then he gave 7 laws. Again, I picked the 2 of them. I believe we don't have that problem. To get to the dirt, we're willing to roll up the sleeves and do all the hard work. I always call myself as a coolie to my secretaries, because I do real work. I don't use just my mouth and tongue. So, and the other thing is that I have to apologize. My way is very direct, and really get down to the detail. This building used to belong to NAVCOA. It's part of a nuclear submarine, and we gave it to you guys, all right? But now I'm not a NAVC either, but so the number 2 is sharing. I don't think we have problem sharing. We always say, oh, we as a team, we did this, we did that. What about yourself? A lot of times we forgot about ourselves. We actually did a lot of contribution, but we don't mention it. But the bullets that was not checked are the things we need to pay attention. Dare to be skunk. Okay, do you really willing to do that? And a lot of times to get to the bottom of the issue, you have to run against the current. You have to say something people don't want to hear. But that's what leadership is about. If a leadership is comfortable, then everybody is a leader. Hey, man, this is the flow right into it, right? No such a thing. And know when to ignore your advisors. You have to have confidence in yourself. Based upon your many PhDs or many MSN, master degrees, you all carry many titles, sometimes too many. Use them. Okay, use your own judgment, your own learning experience. You don't have to always, follow somebody else's. And also develop a selective amnesia. This is kind of interesting, that this I see Asian fall into it. We tend to follow the procedure, the protocol. Oh, somebody else is in charge, and I don't need to say something to that person, and he's perfectly capable. But if you know something and you know the answers is there and you choose to be silent, then you choose to be a coward. Next. I think that this is mentioned before. Know where you're really from. So let's just skip. This, I have to personally to bring this together because nobody wants to give it to me. I gotta tell you, I use all kind of lawyers and attorney to help me. By end, I couldn't get the data. Nobody wanted to give me the data. In the end, I did it myself. I composed a number of databases of the organization that worked for me. And I clearly established the fact that there are two glass ceilings. It's a double pane glass ceiling. It's not just a single pane. From 13 to 14, you have a gigantic barrier. And then from 15 to SESs, you have another one. And that's a reality. That's what we're facing you. How did this happen? Next. I do want to spend a few minutes on this. Go ahead, click. This is a chart I borrowed from Steve Bremerton. He gave a speech at the U.S. Patent Office, and I asked him to give it to me. And the important point here is that where's the battleground? If you wanted to get in there and to struggle, you need to know where you're going. Okay, in terms of the minority, it's a percentage, 30%, cumulatively. If everything under the sun is ideal, we're in a paradise, there shouldn't be so many circles separate, dispersed all over the place. There should be only one concentric circle with everything in it, right? That's the ideal world, but it's not. Where's the battleground? This circle right here, management. Notice it's low in percentage of a minority, right? All right, we are less represented. And also for women, it's less than probably 37%. Where are we? Well, we're in here, architecture, engineering, math, life sciences, especially for this crowd. So the issue is how are you going to go there in my Marine Corps terminology? How are you going to take that hill? How are you going to get there? Next, please. And before we do that, let's examine ourselves. This is a chart put together by a Chinese who went to Germany, and his specialty is art. This is on YouTube. I copied it down, all right? I never met a guy, and I'm very happy to use his chart. But he shows that the cultural differences of us with the Western mainstream in terms of opinion, way of life, reaching out of contact, and also control our emotion. If you remember all the commentators of golf, playing golf, and about Tiger Woods, he has a great shot, no smile, right? Terrible shot, no smile. Gee, they attribute that to Asian way of controlling his emotion. Actually, it's very good because if you get mad or get too elated, and the next shot will be lousy. But the important part is if you're angry, you're still smiling. And people are very puzzled by that. What does that mean? I mean, some of the nerve and the brain and the mouth is not well connected or something. Next. Party, next time you take a hard look, you'll find out we actually form circles. I put it to test. It was actually true. Rather than individually 2 or 3 mingled together, handling of the problem is very important. That is a fundamental issue you need to pay attention to because we talk around the problem. The reason we talk around the problem because we came from a very old culture. And that very old culture, taught us that most of the time the problem is not what you see on the surface. And we tend to be digging in, but the first response, when your opinion is sought and you say nothing, or you say, oh, I have to do more research, or I have to look into more, but give me your opinion, give me your gut feeling. We don't do that. What does that do? It's interpreted as either not willing to engage, or you have really no leadership skill. A lot of times you have to express your opinion. Okay, that's good. And the root causes, also one of the commission that I think that Dr. Carson and I were both on several years back. There were multiple sources of discriminations. The end result is we are lowly represented across the board. Even in the academic field, that we are very well trained. Lots of professors, they don't make it to provost or presidents. Why? Root causes is really B and C. We have some certain perception of that we are inherently foreign. All right? And also there's another issue fundamentally is that within our community, we don't do a good job in mentoring. That's why AGIN established the SCS Candidate Development Program, and we established the one-to-one SCS flag officers mentoring to each of our own people. I mean, to the AGIN member, you got to be a member, otherwise we'll be very busy. Everybody wants to be mentored. So in June 5th, we will hold that meeting, and I hope some of you will be able to join us at DoubleTree Hotel. So my final slides, there's just one more. This is a free tutoring, and I gave this, you have the slides, and so hopefully you share with everybody. There's no copyright. The more you use the copy, the better. Make me feel better. So don't worry about that. I don't charge you royalty. But there are those online trainings. There are also on May 28th at the Partner for Public Service. There is a free session. You can go there and take advantage and get a 360-degree assessment of yourself and understand that you do possess some of the perceived sort of leadership gap that we need to pay attention. My final slide. So, how are you doing inspiring confidence, trust, and admiration? There's nothing wrong being humble and respectful. These are very good attributes. If everybody is arrogant and fight with each other all the time, that would be like Ukraine every day. And that's not good, right? And the focus on how we temper our virtue. But you still have to engage. You have to do your part of the contribution in America's mainstream. History says it takes 100 years to realize, but there are no superior, there are no inferior. So you need to leverage all the opportunities to improve yourself, and that starts with engaging. Engaging what? Engaging in volunteer activities, engaging in the things that after work or before the work or whatever. Okay, and we do have a carry the baggage that the Asian American and Pacific Islanders don't get involved in voluntary or those kind of events. And I know it's not true, but that's part of the effort that we have to put in to gradually dispel those misconceptions, and one day we can prove it to ourselves. To the very first slide I put out in there, we have all the major attributes to be a leader. It's a matter that how you're going to use it and to achieve success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Meng, for joining us today and providing that important idea of leadership. Now, as we come to the end of the celebration of Asian American Pacific Islanders Heritage Month, please welcome Ms. Marilyn Matarang, the Vice President of Energy Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders Network. Ms. Matarang was part of the core working group that helped establish Energy AAPI and has been a member since its inception.
Thank you, Emily. Magandang hapon, konnichiwa, namaste, sawadika, annyeong haseyo, shauhao. Hindi, Japanese, Thai, Korean, and Chinese, each language has its own unique way to wish you good afternoon. First, we'd like to thank Secretary Ernest Moniz, Dr. Andre Sales, Robert Gee, Dr. James Meng, and Dr. Carson Oyang for gracing our event. We also thank our moderator, Afroz Mohammed, and our panelists, Ms. Rosie Abraham, Margaret Chu, and Laura Kleiss, for sharing their perspective on diversity and inclusion, issues that are important to our global workforce and community. Finally, thank you, Migrant Heritage Commission, Phil-Am, Dance Ensemble, for beautiful dance performances, one of which will be performed after my remarks. Now, as you look around your office, or even here in the auditorium, is everyone just like you? Probably not. The demographics of the American workforce have changed dramatically over the last 50 years. Today, the American workforce reflects a population with a significant mix of gender, race, religion, age, and other background factors. We recognize that a diverse workplace environment is directly linked to the success of an organization. We recognize that we can embrace diversity and inclusion through written policies and programs. For example, the STEM Education Coalition focuses on promoting STEM education at every level because it plays a critical role in US competitiveness. I believe that our path forward is to build bridges. Bridges to implement workplace policies and standards that capitalize on a diverse body of talent. Bridges to make diversity evident at all levels of the organization. And bridges to move from recognition to acceptance and ultimately to complete inclusion. Imagine what a world this would be if we build bridges instead of walls. Finally, we hope you found our speakers' remarks and panel discussion thought-provoking. We also hope you enjoyed our cultural performances. Special thanks to Ms. Gloria Smith and the Office of Economic Impact and Diversity for putting together this wonderful event. Now, before we proceed to our food tasting featuring Asian and Pacific Islander cuisine at room 1E245, our finale is a performance called Pangalay. It's a popular festival dance in Sulu, southern Philippines. It's performed in wedding celebrations and may last for several days depending on the financial status and agreement of the brides and the groom's families. Dancers perform this dance to the music of the kulitangan, gabang, and agong. And now we have Pangalay. Thank you. And again, we have lots of food. It's in room 1E245, and thank you all for coming to our celebration. And we hope that you'll join the Energy Asian American and Pacific Islander Network's future events. Thank you.